It also wouldn't be prudent because it would completely wipe out our reserve. So then the next year, we'd come to you and say we have to fund the reserve double the amount because it has to be at this this level and it's empty. So we take out of one pocket and have to fill it with the other. Yes, Brian?
For our earlier discussion, I think this is important for people to know. Given the ridiculous 24% recovery rate we have had from our current insurance provider, it's my understanding that we are pursuing opportunities with other providers, given that you buy insurance for the times when it goes bad, and these people have been horrendous.
Okay, the question is, the question was, are we going with a new insurance carrier?
So we have some very knowledgeable gentlemen on the insurance committee, and the plan is to get a new insurance carrier, but we can't, no insurance company will take that on until we've settled all our claims with the current insurance. So yes, absolutely, we all believe it needs to go.
Thank you.
What company are we with now?
Zurich.
How about the golf club?
Question on the roof, please. Question on the roof.
Yes,
Are we replacing the entire roof or a portion of it?
the entire.
On the entire, this complex?
This, yes. Yeah, the fitness center and the two guard houses. They have approved the two guard houses, finally. Okay. Okay. Turn it over to Cheryl now.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Just want to give you a brief update on the QCA lawsuit. As I think everybody knows, the QCA, who is the plaintiff in this lawsuit, filed it in May of 2017 against Centex Pulte and numerous subcontractors. I think there's about 16, and they're known as the defendants, obviously. And then Pulte turned around and named some additional contractors, and they're called third-party defendants. And they're being held liable for the defects outlined in our expert reports. Centex Pulte filed a motion to comply with the voting requirement under the Florida statutes as a means to stay the litigation, so they try to hold us up in moving that along. They were correct. We needed to take a vote because the damages were in excess of $100,000. So we took that vote in November of last year, and I think there were 501 votes and 459 people said, go ahead, move forward. So it was overwhelmingly approved. Then Paul Janik did file the opposition to the motion, and then the vote took place. So you can go a few more ahead, Jerry. So the current status is we signed, the QCA board signed a blended fee agreement with Paul Janik, who is our legal firm for the QCA in October. And with that blended fee agreement, the QCA pays 50% of the hourly legal fees held at the standard 2017 rate throughout the duration of this litigation. And Paul Janik will receive 20% of the sums recovered. So that's known as the blended fee agreement. We're paying 50% of the fees. They get 20% of any sums recovered. The lawsuit is currently in the discovery phase. This is the longest and most expensive phase of the process. It's also a phase where they're still determining the amount of damages. Someone asked earlier, how much are we suing them for? Currently it is based on a range between 2 and 4 million, but obviously with things happening with the shoreline, which is the biggest issue in this lawsuit, that amount is expected to go up, perhaps significantly. There was an agreed case management plan order, a CMO, approved here just in August. This is designated, and the case is designated as a complex track, which is the hardest of lawsuits. And the case, that means that the case would be resolved within 2 years. The majority of construction defect cases are settled and do not go to a jury trial. I think any of you who were in the November 2017 town hall where we had Jessica O'Reilly, the lawyer on the lawsuit at that time from Volcanic, she indicated that 95% of these cases are settled because the defendant does not want to go to trial. So under the CMO, the estimated date of trial, if it is necessary, is July 2020. The first mediation date is scheduled for January 30th and January 31st of 2019. This is good news considering that the case management order mandated that the first mediation date take place by 4/1/19. So we are a couple months ahead of that date, and a second mediation date is very likely needed, and that would be must be completed by 11/30. So this case management order stipulates all of the dates that the various items and issues have to take place. So progress is occurring. This is a very long, drawn-out process. Settlement has been reached with the defendant, a very minor defendant in the lawsuit. We aren't at liberty to discuss that. It's a small amount. And a second settlement is nearly complete, essentially the same thing. It's a small player in the lawsuit, small damages, but we are making progress. These settlement proceeds are being held in trust by Volcanic. So last year, we assessed each home $386. And that totaled across the 900 homes, $347,000 to cover the litigation fees that we had already expensed in 2017 and were expected to spend in 2018. To date, through 9/30, we have spent $136,600 of that $347,000. So that leaves us with a balance of $210,400. However, the current outlook for this lawsuit, and Jerry and I have been on the phone with the attorneys on many occasions going over this, trying to understand how can we spend this much money if we've only spent $136,600. And I say only because it's in relation to the $347,000. How could we spend that much? And they explained to us that as you prepare for mediation, it is a very timely and costly process. The phase that we're in is discovery. The lawyers are very much involved, and so the legal bills are increasing. And they set a budget for us in the very beginning when we laid out all the issues that this lawsuit could run on the high end up to $480,000. So we need to plan for that amount occurring. And to Jim Kress's question earlier on the other assessment for the roof, if we don't spend this money and we settle, then we're obviously going to be getting monies, and we will get those monies refunded one way or the other. But that would have to be determined how we spend those monies. We've been advised that when we do have a settlement, that we engage the services of an accounting firm to help us decide how to spend those monies. There are a lot of issues contained in the lawsuit, but as I said, the biggest is the shoreline, and that kind of crosses over with what's going on with the CDD. But in any event, with the $480,000 that we need to plan to spend for this lawsuit, that would leave us short $133,000. So we plan to assess $148 per door to cover what we feel may be needed if we reach the top end of that $480,000. And that $148 was built into the $700 that Jerry outlined earlier. Yes, Mike?
Cheryl, is the $480,000 based on the blended fee agreement that you arrived at with Volcanic, or is it based on something earlier?
Yes, it's based on the blended fee. Yes, Diane?
If we prevail, are we able to recover our legal fees?
Oh, from all the legal fees on the other side?
Well, I think it's a statute in Florida, the plaintiff or defendant which are able to obtain your legal fees legally.
Well, I can just say that our lawyers would go after everything that is due us.
And last question, how much are we paying the attorney per hour?
Well, it's a different rate structure depending on what attorney or paralegal is involved, but our attorney who we mostly deal with is paid $235 an hour.
And that's 50%?
No, then we pay 50% of that $235. Any other questions? Yes?
Assuming we win the lawsuit, where is that money going to go?
As I just said, we would hire an accountant to help us determine. Some of it may go into reserve, some of it may help to pay down the bond. You know, we've got a lot of decisions to make. Others will to fix the defects that otherwise weren't fixed. Because if we didn't have this lawsuit, each one of you would be assessed far more money to get all these defects that we currently have on our plate fixed. So as of right now, you have paid $386, and now you're going to get assessed another $148. That should take us all the way through what the cost of this litigation will be, and then hopefully, like I said, they said originally between $2 and $4 million in damages. We'll get some point in between that, or perhaps even more as we continue to add things to the lawsuit, like the boat ramp that collapsed. Every month we're discovering new things. And of course, the shoreline, which we will talk about at the end of this, has just taken that to the stratosphere. Yes, sir.
So is there an agreement to cap fees at 480, or is that just a hope?
No, they set out a budget for us based on what we had identified to begin with.
Yep.
But depending on what happens with the shoreline, that could be a new action, and that would be separate. Because the shoreline as it exists today in the lawsuit is on the original construction of the shoreline. Now the repaired shoreline is a whole new effort, and if we find that it hasn't been built to specifications, that could result in a new action. But they gave us a budget between $355,000 and $480,000, and we feel we need to go with the top end of this just in case. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Chip, let me just sneak one thing in here. Someone had called me earlier today and asked me this question, and it was a great question. When we did the hurricane assessment last year, everyone put it on their, went to their insurance companies. And some people weren't able to get reimbursed because they had a deductible. And the question was, now that we have another one that goes to the same event, they probably should go back to their insurance company and maybe be able to recover some of those monies. Okay? Just wanted to let you know about that.
Yes.
The second assessment, or the one we got for the shoreline, is also reimbursable. So that if you apply for that.
Can you repeat the question? so we
Yeah,
can
she
hear?
said that basically the second assessment was also refundable or approachable to your insurance, so you could.
For the shoreline.
For the shoreline. All right, this is the status of our famous road, Limestone Trail, which joins into our entrance at Quarry Drive. So Limestone Trail is part of it, but not the complete process, because if you point where the light's going to be, you can, well, the light is scheduled, 50% of the design work has been done, as you can read, and it's basically going to complete by March of next year, and then we'll be moving on to the procurement and build and construction, which will finish up in spring of 2020. Now, that road is Quarry on our side, and across the street it's Woodcrest. Woodcrest is a 2-lane road now, but it will be a 4-lane road, and eventually will tie into Vanderbilt Beach. Every exit out of the commercial area that Limestone Trail goes to excuse me, on the left over here. Right now, you're allowed to make a left out of Bel Air Drive, Bel Air Bay, which will allow you to make a left. But they're going to shut that off. So all commercial exits out of Cameron Commons, which is a commercial area, will be right turns only, even on Collier. So what we've got here is, we were approached back in November, go to the next one. We were approached in November by CRE, a company that stands for Commercial Real Estate. And they met with us, Cheryl and myself and some of the board members, and basically said, they were informed us that the county was planning, had required them to do a study of the traffic that would be using our limestone trail. Their private study indicated 35% of all the traffic that is over there in the commercial area would be using our limestone trail and the entrance to or exit out of Quarry Drive. So based upon that, it was a real wake-up call right after the hurricane that we knew, oh my goodness, here we go. So immediately we sat down and started having meetings with CRE, the board members and the county officials to discuss what were our options and where we could proceed. We had proposed to them to put a traffic light at Bel Air Bay by racetrack, but they refused to. They said it was less than a mile long, and so they would not approach that idea at all. Based upon that, we had a meeting here in 2018 where they did a public hearing by the county officials, and they proposed what they were planning to do. During that time, they expected traffic to be used on the private road. After that, Cheryl and myself met with our county representative, Bert Saunders, and Bert told us that they were not going to push for Limestone Trail to be a public thoroughfare. We asked, how can that be if they're not going to have, if there's no way for it to block? Basically, what they told us is he would help us get a gate. Because we're in what's called a PUD controls all of, as the official rules for what you can do inside of a development. We have what's called a public road, and it has been defined by the county commissioners prior. Based upon that private road and the PUD, we can gate. So we are moving ahead to try and get what's called an SPDA, which will allow us, a site development plan amendment, which will allow us to put gates on Limestone Trail and also at the other end of Limestone Trail at Quarry Drive. It's not a cheap process. We expect it will run about, $67,000 for the lawsuit and for the SPDA.
Not a lawsuit.
Not a lawsuit, but the lawyer. I'm sorry.
Lawsuits are not that cheap.
So right now, we've hired a lawyer to represent us as we try and get this done so we can challenge the county on putting gates on our private road. Okay.
That's it.
Any other questions? Yes.
I'm a little confused. Is everybody confused? Yeah.
Well, you're not alone.
So we hired a law firm to see if it's not necessary to give up our road to the county. So is it a county road? Is it something they're going to...
No, it's a private road. It is a private road and has been determined that by the county. But they do not want to have us gate that road.
Okay. So then they want to gate the road. Okay.
That has
So
become...
my last question, will the county still put up a light for us?
We're getting a light one way or another.
Okay.
Excuse me?
Yes. Yeah, Clem.
I remember I was at that meeting and they were talking about taking over the bridge responsibility and the maintenance of that bridge that we have at the airport. Are they going to do that also?
No, we don't want them to.
No, we don't want them to. That is...
But we would still open, we pay the insurance, we face all the liability, we don't want their maintenance.
Okay, now I think they mentioned at the time it's $2 million to maintain that bridge. Are you willing to accept the $2 million maintenance?
Yes.
This is what they mentioned at the time.
Well, what he said, what our attorney also said was, the county does not pay for any roads that they do not own.
That's right.
So what he was saying that night was not true.
Clem, what I believe he said, correct me if I'm wrong, is we'll make a deal with you. We'll take over the maintenance of the road, and you give it to us. And he tried to entice us by saying, hey, if you have to replace that bridge, it's $2 million.
Correct.
Okay, in my lifetime, that's not gonna happen. I'm not worried about it, okay? But think about maintaining that road, what that entails. Take a look at the way the road is maintained at our back gate. It'll look awful there. The other thing is, and that, in return for that, we allow all the traffic. Do you know what 18-wheelers are gonna do on all those pavers out there on that road? It wasn't built for that. Believe me, we would incur a lot more cost.
Bring up the
So we
map.
will maintain, in case they don't, we will maintain that road, is that what they're saying?
No, they will not, no.
They will maintain the road.
Just watch your step.
I understand. I just want to understand what is the ramification of it.
I love this. This road right here, this where it turns, is almost a 30-degree angle right here. It is. If you go out there and look, I was out taking photographs to try and send the people that are doing our SPDA. There are already black marks from a tractor trailer they used it to get out to make a right, because traffic backs up so bad over here when you come out from Bel Air Bay, even right turns. So already we're starting to get a lot more traffic out the front of our private road. This is all pavers in this area here. And it is not going to take heavy tractor trailer traffic and without major damage. They will never take care and maintain a private road.
So where are the gates?
No, where are the gates?
The gates would be put here and over here. Right by the racetrack is here, the gates would be here.
And that has to be approved by the people that actually want us to use the roads as a public way.
They don't have, the people that own commercial do not have any say-so in this. All it is, the county has a say-so in it.
So we're going to ask the county that wants to use this as a road to allow.
But it's a private road. Yes, sir.
If it's a private road, we've got a right to close it.
And it says so in our PUD, but the traffic department has stated, well, basically, the county manager has stated basically he would challenge us on this. That's the way it goes right now.
I think you ought to try it.
Oh, we are. We are.
I'm not giving it
The
away.
way the process is gonna work is,
Do it for an afternoon.
hold on, the key is this site development plan. Just like if you were gonna do anything in your private home, you'd have to ask for a permit. This is going to Collier County and saying, we're gonna put up gates. And that's where the proverbial, you know what, will hit the fan. And that's when they'll either challenge our right to do it, and that's when the attorneys will say, if the county has a leg to stand on in terms of that. So we have to design it and go through that process and seek out the permit for the gates. And then we'll see how the county comes forth to fight the fact that this is a private road. So until we get to that point, it's all talk. That's when the heavy lifting
I
starts.
don't think if we take it to any judge,
That they would go along with this unless they told them to buy it. And the problem is because it joins up, go back to the map, please, Jerry. Because it joins a commercial area to a private area, it cannot be eminent domain. So I think we've got a really good case here. Yes, sir.
Chip, who's going to fund the actual construction cost of the light, the interchange?
The light will basically be paid by everybody that lives inside of the PUD areas, both here and across the street. Any other questions? Yes, Diane.
What have we paid so far in legal fees?
We paid about, go back to the chart after this,
It's just an estimate, up to maybe 10,000.
about 10,000.
And we hired them to inform us we have a private road.
We didn't hire them, we hired them to challenge the county on our right to do what we want to do. Yes, sir.
what kind of gates are we talking about? Just blocking off the
We're
business?
talking metal gates. If we couldn't put any of these vertical things because people would run them and crash
So,
them.
I mean, no one can use it, not even us, correct?
beg your pardon?
We could even use it either.
Oh, yeah, we'd be able to use it, and we have to allow Heritage Bay to use it too as well. So that's one of the things in the PUD that says that road out there was used for both us and Heritage Bay to have access to the commercial. Yes, Tom?
Hey, Chip, three-part question, I guess. The first is, do you have any sense as to the cost of the gates? Any sense? The second part...
Well, we had an initial look at it, depending on the type of gate that you want. I do not think we're going to propose a gatehouse there where you have a guarded gatehouse. But you'll have it similar to our exit where we use, metal gates and then maybe possibly some type of control structure to prevent people from running through the metal gates once it's open for 1 or 2.
So, how much?
I would imagine it will I can't give you an estimate on that. I mean, they basically said, depending on what you want, and they gave us a range of everything from like 80,000 to 200,000.
Okay. Second part is, when do you think we would actually execute putting in those? And then the third part is, will we have the money in the budget to do that at that point?
So that's part of the stuff we're looking to do for the capital in the future, because it'll be a capital expenditure. I keep pointing to something not there anymore.
What do you want, picture?
It's okay. Yes.
Is Heritage Bay, since we have a lot of them to pay for that?
We would probably have to get a lot of this is yet the details to be worked out, but what we've talked about ourselves is we would have to give them a transponder that works for those gates only, and they would pay for it, okay?
Are they going to help us pay for the gates instead of...
That, let me tell you, working with Heritage Bay to do this when we're trying to work with them on the lakes is very tough. But we'll look at it.
But I think we need to look at it.
I agree with you.
And why are we letting in Heritage Bay residents now through our main gate right here?
They're not allowed in.
Well, they are. I just met someone that lives in Heritage Bay, and,
Well, there's some of the Heritage Bay people actually have property in here as well.
well, he doesn't, I asked him.
All right, well then if you could work with us, we can find out what their transponder is and we'll delete it. Yes, sir.
I was thinking that maybe we don't give them the transponder in order for them to participate. You can negotiate that issue. Participate in the expense of the attorney, expense of the case, and everything. If they're getting access, they can share it. No?
Clem, our lawyer says that we have to legally give Heritage Bay the right to use that road to access the commercial development center. It's in the PUD, we have to.
Without any cost?
Huh?
Without any cost?
You probably should charge them for transponder costs,
That's
but
it.
not the gate. They won't pay for the gate.
Because it's on our property. It's on our property, not their property.
Blocking access, but they do care about getting over their different roads.
Yes, ma'am.
We can't hear it, Chip.
Yeah, just repeat it, Chuck.
We couldn't hear it.
Okay, basically she's asking why would the county go ahead with the light here if it didn't help the traffic conditions inside the commercial area? The county had proposed this from day one before this was part of the original PUD, and they had always planned to do that. I can't answer for why they've done what they've done in the commercial section. Does that answer your question? I mean, we really don't know.
They want to take it down so the traffic light will eliminate traffic on Florida coming on Immokalee. They wanted to go down Woodcrest to go to Vanderbilt to go out. So they're trying to reduce the traffic along Immokalee Road to force people.
And one of the reasons they didn't do it at Bel Air Bay, if you remember if you were here for the presentation, they talked about a flyover they're going to have over Collier because of the potential traffic in the future. So that's kind of the reason for why we're the ones that are going to be controlling traffic going east. It's not an easy solution. We're all doing everything we can to meet with the people and try and get things worked out. But I think if you look at our PUD, it says we can't gate our private roads, and I think if it ever went to a judge, I think it would be okay, in my opinion.
Any more questions?
Okay, thanks. Okay, we're going to move to the next topic, and that'll wrap up the budget, and then we can go to the other topic. And I just want to start this topic off by asking some rhetorical questions get you to think about it. You know, we always talk about amenities, and the question comes up. Let me backtrack. Try and explain the need for a strategic plan for the community. So some of the questions that you might have is, what level of amenities would we like in this community 5 years from now, 10 years from now? You know, it's not, well, we like them good, we like them great, but what does that mean? We don't know. What do we want from the beach club and tiki bar? Do you want good service? Do you want good quality, good pricing? Do you want 2 out of 3? You know, it's pretty tough to do, and what does that mean? Do we want to fund things as they occur via unpredictable special assessments? Or would we rather have a clear picture of dues over the next 5 years so we could plan? So if someone's moving into the community, they know what to expect. Do we want to stay competitive with other communities to preserve property values for the foreseeable future? We have to answer the question, is this a 1,000 a quarter community, 1,250, 1,500, 2,000 for single family homes? And you know, similar numbers relatively to those for condominium homeowners. What is our vision for this community, and what will it take to meet our collective vision? Do we want to maintain this community the way it is today forever? Or do we have to keep up? The other thing is, do we want the direction of the community to change every time there's a change in the board of directors? Or do we want to have a living document that has to be followed from year to year? So it's time to get these answers. You know, it's a very young community. It's in an infant stage with turnover just happening mid-2015. But we've got to see where we want to go as a community. So we are budgeting funds for strategic planning to answer those and many other questions. And I'm not going to read the next, but you can read it, what strategic planning is. It's in your handouts. But we need to go through this process. And it's going to be a lot of input from the community. I'm sure it'll be focus groups and things like that, demographics. Where are we going? What do we need in the future? You know, as an example, in talking with our attorney last week, first of all, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal about this community with 47 homes in California that's at war over adding pickleball courts. And when we asked that to our attorney, he said that is the #1 thing that's causing problems in HOAs. Why? Because it's a new amenity. Many communities that are built 10, 15 years ago didn't have any pickleball courts. Where do they go? How many do we need? How do we fund it? You know, what do we need for something like that 5 or 10 years from now as people take up sports? What are the people interested in? So it pertains to this building. I can't tell you how many people have complained about this building. The decor, the sound. You know, we have 900 people, 900 doors, 1,800 people and guests and other family members, and we have a seating capacity in this building of what, 100, 125? We can't really do any decent-sized functions in here. So that's why we said in the reserve study, before we start spending money to paint walls and do carpeting and get new furniture, where do we want to head? And maybe redirect those funds and not do it twice, just spend the money.